afraid I'd
Pay for it, sure. Right now.
Good evening.
That's what I've heard.
Welcome to the Thursday, April 11th meeting of the Cape Elizabeth School Board. I'd like to start with the Pledge of the Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item would be adjustments to the agenda.
I have put 3 different items in front of you on your desk. Two of them are for trips that have come up at the last minute. One of them is from Sarah Welch from the middle school, which we would add to the agenda. The second one is from Jake Jackson, and this is about her trip to Greece, which originally was supposed to be totally over vacation, but they've had to change so that they are leaving this Friday. So that is there, which we'll go over when we get to the superintendent's report. And also the last page is an updated draft of the calendar dated 4/11/06. So it's the most recent one.
Where in the agenda will we be putting those meeting trip requests in?
The 2 trip requests we could do under the, either under communications or superintendent's report. I would suggest under the superintendent's report. And then the calendar one is 12D on the second page under new business.
Okay. Great. I'd also like to request as item number 16 to be added a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing evaluation and duties of the superintendent as per MRSA 405 subsection 6.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? 4. All those opposed? 3. Thank you. Approval of the March school board minutes. We have March 28th. This was a special meeting of the school board. Are there any corrections or comments there? May I have a motion to accept the meetings as presented?
So moved.
Kathy? Those opposed? Second? Thank you. All those in favor? 7-0. We also have meeting minutes for March 14th. I'm sorry. Any comments or changes? I'd like to note a couple of typos, if I could. The second page, under 5, it is Heather Furman, not Freeman. Then down later on, that her spelling of her name needs to be corrected. Also on page 1, 2, 3, at the very, very bottom, a vote that was called on the particular motion, we need an adjustment to the no vote as being an L. Willett. I need to know whether that was Rebecca Millette. Okay, thank you. All right, we just want to make that adjustment.
Elaine, correction, the vote on March 28th was 6, and I'm abstaining. I don't feel I should vote on a meeting I didn't attend.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
The special meeting of March 28th, I did not vote to accept the minutes.
March 28th meetings?
Wasn't that the workshop?
No, that's the one we voted on first.
There was a workshop. 28th was the workshop.
Right.
28th was the workshop.
We just voted on that first.
Yeah, I didn't vote in favor of it.
Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry. I didn't quite get what you were getting at.
Since I wasn't at the meeting, I don't feel it's appropriate.
All right, I'd like to make an adjustment. That vote was 6-0. 6-0 with 1 abstention. I apologize
it's
for not
okay.
seeing your hand. Back to March 14th meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to accept as amended?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you, Trish. All those in favor? That would be 7-0. Thank you. Comments from our student representatives. So if we could start with the middle school. We have Jack Fisher and Will Daly.
I'll be doing the 7th and 8th grade this week. Last Thursday, 10 kids, or 6 teams from the 8th grade, traveled to Augusta to compete statewide in the National History Day competition. National History Day is a competition in which 8th grade students can pick any topic of their choice and present the topic how they choose. There were many categories, including single documentary, group documentary, paper, single exhibit, and group performance. The top 2 teams in each category are sent to nationals at the University of Maryland in June. 5 of the 6 teams from Cape that competed, despite there being about 10 schools there, placed first or second, and we'll be going to nationals, I think, June 11th. I'm on a team myself, and we came in second, and we would really much appreciate it if you guys could support us on this trip. To sum it up, the boys and girls lacrosse has just started, and it's as well as indoor track, and they're all going really well.
Hi. Well, in the last 2 weeks, spring sports have started. Jack said lacrosse, also outdoor track, and baseball and softball. Throughout the whole school, we supported something called Pennies for Patients, which is where we collect loose change and money as well. That benefits leukemia research. We raised a total of $1,070 throughout the school. And Mrs. Connolly's class in the 5th grade collected the most amount with $190. The last 5th and 6th grade social was a bowling social, and the kids that went had a really great time, and it was a great success. And then the next social will be held at Fort William sometime in May.
Great.
I had a comment. You guys didn't mention, but I just wanted to thank all of the middle school students who participated and those who were part of the audience for the play that was last weekend. There were like 65 or 70 kids who were involved, and lots of their peers came to watch it, and it was a great production. The kids just put a huge amount of time and energy into it, and I just want to congratulate all the students for their efforts and the other folks who helped to make it a really successful activity.
Any other questions? You're dismissed. Thank you very much. This evening, do we have any high school representatives here this evening? I know that some of them are traveling far and wide this evening, so it looks like at this point we will not have a high school report at this point. I'd like to welcome Tom Eismeyer at this point. He has an announcement to make. We've had not a potential new hire, but perhaps a guest this evening.
We did, and maybe he thought the meeting was a little later. I didn't expect to be on duty today because I'm not actually the principal, but if you don't mind, I can fill in. Today was the annual Principal for a Day. Mitchell Morris in grade 3 had gotten the word out. He had talked to his friends. He made some new friends, too, when he was principal for a day. And he was principal all day today. If he comes, we can still ask him some questions. Besides allowing hats, which has become a tradition, and gum. I think Cumberland Farms runs out of gum today. He made wearing of ties optional. I think I was the only one who exercised the option. He managed to visit some classes. He brought in extra gum for kids who forgot. We did have some visitors to the office who wanted to call home and say, can you come bring me some gum? But we got him down. He brought his bag and he gave out the gum. But the biggest thing, something happens new every year with this. Yesterday we had a very unusual dismissal when a sprinkler sensor went off and the fire alarm went off right at dismissal time. And today, the principal for a day played stimulating music at dismissal time, and even some of the teachers on duty were dancing in the lobby. So he did a great job. I always feel a little threatened, particularly since it's around negotiations time, but he did a really good job. And maybe I told him the wrong time, but if he does come, we can probably ask him some questions. I have to say, he was a quiet leader. He's behind the
That can
scenes.
be very effective.
Very effective, yeah. I'm going to get requests for more music tomorrow, I think.
Tom, just what was the stimulating music?
Well, you have to do YMCA, it's just a must. And then it turns out that everybody, when they hear the music, reflexively does all that stuff. And you have to do We Will Rock You. And you have to do something else, I don't know, but it was...
First two pass.
Yeah, right. This is not middle school. We were fine. But it is a nice activity, and it's a bit of a fundraiser for PCPA. Everybody likes it.
Great.
I'm sorry I had to fill in. He would have been much more effective, but if he does come, we'll get him up here. Thanks.
Thank you. At this point, we are at item number 5, which would be comments from the public on non-agenda items. If anyone would like to come to speak. Okay. Moving to communications, we have slated a presentation regarding the proposal for artificial turf field at the high school.
Is the fourth grade?
I apologize, I'm sorry. We will be presenting the number 9, which is a report from the 4th grade teachers on Robinson Woods. My apologies and welcome.
No problem. We're very happy to be here to share this information with you. The very first thing I would like to do is let you know that this is a wonderful collaboration between our 4th grade team, who are all here, and the staff and volunteers of the Cape Elizabeth Land Trust. And with us now are Chris Franklin, who give you some greetings later on, and Suzanne McGinn, who's one of the co-chairs of the Land Trust Education Committee. One of the things I'd like you to look at is lifted items from the learning results that are connected with what we're doing. All of this work has to do a great deal with the mandate from the learning results and the content standards and performance indicators that are listed for you. Just briefly, they are classifying landforms, where students will understand that there are similarities within the diversity of all living things. And ecology, students will understand how living things depend on one another and on non-living aspects of the environment. We have, of course, worked with these learning results for a long time and have struggled a bit to find the right avenues for dealing with these particular issues. We've taken kids at some expense out to Audubon for winter walks and so forth, and we just had in our minds that this is ridiculous to be spending this kind of money and traveling out there when we have so many wonderful trails right here in Cape Elizabeth. Well, last spring, Suzanne and Lisa appeared at a team leaders meeting saying they really are enthusiastic about collaborating with our schools in general. And I went, bingo. Here we are. This is exactly what we've been looking for. And with their work and ours, we really reworked this section of our science lessons to do better ones, to meet the learning results, and being more experiential, hands-on lessons with impact. As we work together, Lisa and Suzanne created packets of lessons, guidelines for docents, Nature journals came as a result for every single child, provided by the Land Trust, where they could take them into the field with some guides already built in for your view. And they've been working very hard to create a resource center for the whole school system. Fortunately, it's housed in our library, our media center. It's the Environmental Resource Center. As we share this with you, Chris will bring greetings from the Land Trust. Fran Vita Taylor will share with you some of the classroom preparations and follow-ups that we do before and after the walks. And we have a wonderful slideshow where maybe it will come alive for you in the end. There is a display that a parent from my room did with some of the pictures. If you have a chance at some point to look more closely at those, a lot of those will be in the slideshow anyway. So, Chris, would you like to start off with some greetings for the crew here?
Thanks for having us tonight. It's an exciting night to see this come to fruition. This is something the Land Trust has talked about, trying to increase our coordination and collaboration with the schools over the years. We've done the 8th grade trail work project for, I believe this is our 6th or 7th year running. Each year we have a number of seniors who choose to do their senior transition project with the Land Trust, which we've done successfully over the past couple of years. Last year, a couple of seniors put together a video about the Land Trust for our 20th anniversary. And it's just really exciting when we put out this sort of request for a proposal to the schools as to which teachers or grade levels were interested in collaborating with the Land Trust. We were very excited that the elementary school came back to us because that was one of the only school that we didn't have an active program with at the time. And with the Environmental Resource Center that's come to be, it's really great to have a presence there, because obviously these kids love being outside, and seeing them in Robinson Woods is a real treat. We've developed a couple other programs. We've had some after-school programs, sort of mini summer camps through community services, which have been well attended, and also targeted towards this age group. And it's been really exciting to now have something in the schools. And it's really true that, you know, with such a local resource, basically in their backyard, to be able to go out and look at Robinson Woods three different times throughout the year and see how the animals are adapting in the winter, or identify some of the wildflowers in the spring, or to do tree identification and web of life exercises. It's really been fueled by mostly by volunteer efforts. You know, as the executive director of the Land Trust, I've certainly helped coordinate some of this, but Suzanne McGinn and Lisa Silverman Gent have really made this happen with their excitement for the program, and really with the initiative taken by the 4th grade team that they wanted to do this, and to follow through on making their needs mesh with you know, our availability. And so we're very excited to see all of this happening, and, you know, glad to be able to share this with you tonight. Available for any questions before or after. So.
For Chris, before we go on.
Do we have any questions before we have the presentation? Well, I'd just like to say thank you for coming this evening. It's a pleasure to have you here. It's always thrilling to see the collaboration of other groups that want to come into our schools and share some of the knowledge and skills that you have to share. So thank you, and I look forward to it.
I'd just like you to know that Lisa has come in, and I think it's worth Suzanne and Lisa standing, because their efforts have been phenomenal. Give them a hand. They're shy. Fran will help move the presentation along.
We thought you might want to know a little about what we did in the classroom before and after these walks. what kinds of activities that went along with these. So the fourth grade team reviewed the fall walk outline before we began, and we decided that we had certain teaching goals. We wanted to enrich the experience of the Robinson Woods walks. We wanted to more fully meet the learning results, and we saw the walk as an opportunity to integrate the various science topics that we cover in fourth grade. So we decided that food chains, woodland ecosystems, the water cycle, adaptations, and the life cycle of a plant were all topics that we wanted to cover pretty thoroughly in the classroom. And for resources, we had the Environmental Resource Center that the Land Trust created in the Media Center, and resources we already had in the Media Center and in our classrooms. And we also were lucky enough to have taxidermy mounts that the art teacher was using that she had borrowed from the Maine Audubon Society. So all of these things came together for us. And some examples of the kinds of lessons we did were an adaptation project where the kids created their own bird, and they drew pictures and described the bird's adaptation. So it was a good writing and science project and art project. And we read aloud books. We observed the taxidermy mounts to look for, to identify adaptations. We saw videos, various classroom assignments, played games. We had a computer lab activity. And we also had the FOSS Structures of Life kit that we use every year that covers the life cycle of a plant. They sprouted bean seeds, and we had hydroponic containers with bean plants. And let's see, we also did other pre- and post activities for the winter walk. We were given a lovely packet of reading materials and activities from the Land Trust, and also posters of Maine animal tracks. So it was pretty comprehensive. We did all this in the classroom before and after the walks. And overall, we feel that the Land Trust walks were at Robinson Woods did a wonderful job of pulling this disparate pieces of our science curriculum together and bringing it to life. And it's been a very successful collaboration between the Land Trust and the fourth grade team.
Our resident computer guru, Eric Nielsen, has worked with Lisa and Suzanne, who pulled the kids together to create narration for this slideshow. So you will hear voices of these children, and their names will be listed at the end of the whole event. So you may want to part waters.
Robinson's Woods has always been fun for me, but with the Cape Elizabeth Land Trust, it was even more fun. I got to see lots of animal tracks like deer or rabbit. I also saw lots of real animals too. I saw salamanders and other animals I don't quite know the name of. The games were really fun, especially the camouflage game. You have to look around for things that do not belong in the forest. I saw lots of ice jumps that had footprints on them. I learned lots of things, like the only three true hibernators in Maine. A jumping mouse, a woodchuck, and a little brown bat are the only three true hibernators in Maine. Robinson's Woods is so great.
A leaf fell onto some ice. It made a print of a detailed leaf. The ice was really a frozen vertical next to a big tree. A Peleid woodpecker made a hole in the tree. Peleid woodpeckers are very big, and their holes are in a square shape. That's how you know his hole from all the other woodpeckers' holes. Wow, mouse tracks, I said. My classmate found them on a rock. There were little footprints in the middle, a line from its tail. I wonder where he was going. Wow, here are some ice sculptures. There was one that looked just like a cursive T. The sculptures were all packed together in a complex design. As we stand
you will have to get your hands wet because if it gets dry, it will die. The life cycle is first an egg and then a tadpole in the vertical, and then a small nymph, then an adult. When we saw him, he looked very, very scared. It would run away, and it would run under people's legs. And it would follow people. So in the end, we went away, and it went under a log. And Robinson Woods was the best.
Slithering about, no thought about his whereabouts. Green as grass as we watch it pass, no match for any kind of rats. As all the people look down, the little wonder looks like he was about to drown. As we look down at the little snake, the food he does not want is steak, but he wants a field mouse, not a louse. He goes to the tree for the protection of thee, as the reptile prepares for the winter ahead. He will go and search for a warm bed. It could be a hole, it could be a den, it could be a place where no one's been. I'm really looking forward to seeing him in the spring. Do you think he'll be in the shape of a ring? Robinson Woods rule! This is the best of schools.
Some animals sleep all winter. They don't get up once. They build themselves a home and sleep all winter. Jumping mice do it too. A lot of animals do it. Not knowing much about it until we got off that yellow school bus. Our docent knew a lot, so it was easy to learn about hibernation. A tree is dormant. It's like hibernating, but not 24/7. That's why they lose their leaves. Trees try to maintain all their energy for the winter. That's why their leaves turn yellow, red, and brown, and then fall off. Even plants hibernate. Robinson Woods was really fun. I can't wait for spring for our spring walk.
Picture this. You're a bear. It's winter and you're deciding which way to keep one. You have two choices, fat and fur. The fur looks soft and warm. You can just see yourself going around in a warm, comfy coat. Then you glaze over the slimy, greasy fat. It does not inspire you. You take the fur and put it on. Yes, it's soft. Very soft. But do you stay warm in this? Do you feel much different? No. Alright, it's time to take a look at the fat. You put
can see this isn't just a walk in the park.
Truly.
And do you have any questions for us?
I have a question. What were the lines of what appeared to be maybe blue string or something?
Right.
Were those delineating something?
Those were activities, maybe Lisa, you could speak to it a little more, but they were activities both in the fall and the winter where kids were identifying various, calling out various animals or plants that were part of the season then. And also, I think there were hibernation, food chain things too, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other?
Hey, I was just wondering about is there additional funding? I mean, was there a special grant for the journals and the time of the staff of the Land Trust and all
Land
that stuff?
Trust funded,
The Land Trust funded it?
yes.
Wow. That's great.
Mystery money to us, it was just wonderful.
Just as a
So-
comment, I really like the idea of our kids getting out and using the local resources for these types of outdoor experiences, regardless of whether they're related to science or some other topic. But
Right.
it's really great to see this. And I could see that the kids in here, that the kids were pretty enthusiastic, and that's
Yes,
always a
they
good
were.
learning experience. So thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you to the Land Trust for
Yes.
paying for this.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming out tonight and sharing all this with the school board. We appreciate it. Now, I think I'm in the right order.
Transition.
We will transition and back to 6A, which would be a presentation and regarding the proposed artificial turf field at the high school. And we have a group here to make that presentation.
Wish we had Eric Nielsen to do our slideshow. That was awesome.
Yeah?
I messed up. Can you go backwards? How did that start? Awesome. Thanks a lot. Good evening. My name is Michael Ott, and I am joined by Graham Smith and various other members of a group that is exploring the possibility of a lighted turf field for the town of Cape Elizabeth. We call our effort Lights, Bleachers, Action. Lack of creativity, call it what you may. A picture really does hold 1,000 words. This is a field in New Hampshire, and this will give you a sense of the versatility of one of these artificial turf fields. This photo, I believe, was taken in January. They had plowed this snow 2 days prior to the use of this field. So literally, you plow the snow, and within a couple hours even, it can be used. The question often asked is why artificial turf for the town of Cape Elizabeth? First of all, and this is the one that really motivated me individually, all sports will be able to play under the lights. As it currently stands, lights are going into the lower field in May. When that happens, a select few teams will be able to play under the lights. We want to avoid a situation in this town where you have haves and have-nots. We want all students to have the opportunity to play into the lights. The second point is our fields currently are overcrowded. We have scheduling issues, and we, year in and year out, have very poor field conditions. I picked my son up at lacrosse practice yesterday. He's on the state championship varsity lacrosse team, and they were sharing a field. The varsity was sharing a field with the 7th grade team and the 8th grade team. Way too crowded. A turf field is always ready for play. Again, the lacrosse team had a game in Yarmouth last year, and it was raining like you would not believe, and it had rained all week. They went out there, played that game, footing was fine, and they just went about their business. It was fantastic. This will prevent the rescheduling of games and practices. When the weather turns nasty, our fields absolutely get shredded. This town would greatly benefit from a workhorse field, one that they could run from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock if the school chose to do so, and it would show no signs of wear and tear. This would be very important for late fall and early spring, both games and practices. If you attended any games in the spring or the fall last year and you saw the soup and the mud that these athletes were playing in, you understand exactly what I mean. Cape culture. Last year in 2005, 70% of the high school students participated in the Cape athletic programs. Last year, 85% of the middle school kids participated in athletic programs. Athletics are an important part of our town culture. When I first got involved with this effort, my first reaction was, this is a luxury that we just don't need. It doesn't make any sense. But as I did my homework, we quickly realized as a group that this is really a necessity, not a luxury. As mentioned earlier, we have a field use versus field capacity issue. Our athletic programs have grown, youth programs have grown, middle school programs have grown. We've added football, etc. All of our teams play their games and practice on the same field. That leads to a rapid deterioration of that field each season. We do not have the benefit of a stadium-only field like a lot of other communities have. The artificial turf fields, the new generation that we're currently looking at, are much safer than they were when I was a kid. It's not the concrete that I saw when I was a kid. There are no hidden potholes, there are no sprinkler heads, no divots to cause injuries, no bare spots due to overuse, which would be brilliant for a game like field hockey. The reality is we have a limited budget and time for grass fields, meaning given our geography, the grass really doesn't start to grow till what, June, July, and it stops in October. So the fields get shredded, and a great grass field should be allowed to rest for 6, ideally 12 months. We do not have that luxury in town. This is a wonderful example of what the lower field in Cape could look like. Imagine the turf field down. It's going to look like that no matter what the conditions, no matter what the weather, no matter what the season. That field will always look exactly like that. Imagine a series of bleachers on the school side of the field looking out over the marsh. It could be one of the most stunning settings in all of Maine. We like to refer to this as a multi-use outdoor classroom because that's what it really is. Field hockey could use this, football could use this, lacrosse could use this, soccer could use it. Community services could have events there. You literally could have senior bocce ball events there. If you build it, they will come. Community services camps. Right now, the bulk of the fields in town are closed during the summer so they can recuperate again for the fall season. PE classes. I've talked to the PE instructors at the school. They would love to see something like this happen. Foul weather. Baseball, softball could use it. The rental potential for a field like this is enormous. Fitzpatrick uses their field 4,000 hours a year. Again, 4,000 hours a year. They rent that approximately 25% of the time at a rate of between $100 and $150 an hour. You do the math. It's pretty impressive. Marching band events, they'd love to have events on a surface like this. Also tournament play, whether it be soccer, lacrosse, football, field hockey, possibilities are endless. Another snapshot of what this field could look like. And again, we're space restricted down in that lower field, but if you look at examples like this, it's okay. You can see how it can work and work quite well. Benefits of an artificial turf outdoor classroom. Play when wet is significant. You could literally have 10 inches of rain throughout the week and continue to play, no standing water. Snow melts quickly. You want to start your practices come April 1st or whenever the Principals Association gives you the go-ahead, you're out there. You're ready to go. You have great traction even when pouring. You have even and consistent wear. Maintenance, more economical than natural grass. There are permanent lines laid down. They're there all the time. You have no chemicals to pollute the aquifer. And again, as we mentioned earlier, this new generation of turf has a lot more give in it. The initial data tells us that head injuries are greatly reduced on this artificial turf versus natural grass because it has better shock absorption. I brought a sample of it over here if you'd like to take a look at it later on. And the great thing is it plays like real grass. Another benefit is they just spent an enormous amount of money refurbishing the brand new gymnasium. It looks fantastic. But when the weather turns lousy, the field sports want to get in there, whether it's spring or fall. This would save unnecessary wear and tear on the gymnasium. Early evening games is also a benefit. Imagine if you're a parent and you're working and you're trying to sneak out of work at 3:15 in the afternoon. If that game was held at 6 in the evening, how fantastic would that be for the parents? Revenue potential for the school and town. We mentioned Fitzpatrick in those numbers, so you see the potential there. Another example of what this field could look like. This is by far my favorite slide. Field of Cape Elizabeth Pride. Playing under the lights is memorable for both players and spectators. As it currently stands right now, if we have grandparents or parents that want to view a game, they have no place to sit. They've got to stand. As we did a survey of schools around the greater Portland area, we are the only school that we could find that does not have lights and or bleachers on a field. It's a positive venue for weekend night activities. It'll boost school spirit. Imagine Friday night lights football games. Imagine Saturday night lights soccer games, where the whole community turns out to watch one of these games and get behind the team. It'd be absolutely brilliant. It'll enhance community involvement. As I mentioned earlier, we will find uses for this field that we haven't even thought of. If you build it, people imagine a way to use it, and they will. The last one, keep Cape as an attractive alternative. Yarmouth has enjoyed an artificial turf field since 2001. We've talked to several of their town councilors, and they just rave about this field. They say it's the greatest thing they did. They love it. Scarborough has stated that they will install a turf field either this fall or next spring. Falmouth, Gorham, and Greeley now are considering artificial turf fields. We received a call, our group, from both Falmouth and Greeley just last week saying, we're serious about this. Partner with us so we can get better pricing on this field. South Portland has a brilliant facility in Wainwright. They have 12 fields over there, so they can rest their fields. They also have a stadium field. Cumberland has Twin Brooks. Have you ever seen that facility where they have a series of fields throughout this beautiful setting? And again, even though they have Twin Brooks, they're talking about building a turf field because they see the benefit. This will help keep Cape as an attractive school system throughout the greater Portland area. We did a 10-year break-even analysis. The initial cost on the turf field is less than $600,000. That's including the maintenance over that 10-year period of time. A natural grass field to install would cost about $500,000. So it's $100,000 more basically to install an artificial turf field. What's wonderful though are the available hours for operation. We tried to be conservative here. On the turf field, we've estimated 1,400 hours. Again, Fitzpatrick runs theirs 4,000 hours. A grass field, you can maybe at best get 600 hours out of it a year. This could really be the workhorse for the entire community. These are just some costs of some recent installations. What's amazing is if you wanted to put one of these fields in 5, 6 years ago, the cost was double what you're seeing there. Yarmouth paid for theirs through a bond. They spent $1.8 million. So technology and also increased competition, other people putting these fields in, has really allowed the price to drop dramatically. This is a photo that I took of the lower field. I can't remember the exact date, but I would say sometime in February. Now, on that very same day, if we had the turf field, that's what it would look like on that very same day. Now imagine this setting. On the near side here, you can see the grassy area. That's a pretty steep hill, actually. You could have people there watching the game, having a picnic. On the far side there, imagine a row of bleachers packed with people, the lights, you got a great scoreboard, and again, you're overlooking this marsh. The setting could be absolutely stunning. Finally, challenges to overcome, and we will overcome these challenges. Phase 1 is to privately fund the artificial turf field. We understand the issues with the school budget, with the town council, etc. That's why we are going to try our best, and we will succeed at privately funding this effort. The lights will be installed in May, and that effort has long been underway and nearly complete. That's for those to be installed. Phase 2, once we build it, people enjoy it, it becomes an integral part of the community, then we'll go out on another fundraising effort, which is far less. We estimate that to be between $150,000 and $200,000. Bleachers are $100,000, a coach's box, scoreboard, snack shack, and an endowment. We start an endowment for the replacement of the turf. Our guess is that this will last probably 14 years before it needs to be replaced. And again, as an example, Fitzpatrick, that rental income, 4,000 hours, 25% of the time, they're charging between $100 and $150 per hour. Graham Smith is here as well, and others. We'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you very much. Questions?
No, but that was very thorough.
Thank you.
Good job.
I have a question, maybe you covered it, but what is the cost to maintain the field?
We estimate that it'll cost about $5,000 a year, and that is because you have to disinfect the field.
And are you intending for that portion to be also privately funded, or are you looking to the school to cover that, or the?
Well, it typically costs between, depending upon the field, $9,000 and $11,000 currently to maintain each field. So we would look for the town to do that at a cost savings, in theory.
I got a couple more. The cost to replace it, you mentioned, and you're hoping to, it wouldn't take up to, it would hold on to for up to 14 years. What would be, do you have an estimate of what the cost would be? I mean, would it be another 600 at that point, or?
No, it wouldn't be another 600, because the great thing is we have an asset in the ground right now in that lower field. So what was done there is not a loss. There's 3,000 feet of drainage pipe underneath that field. There's a foot of type C gravel underneath that field. That will all be used when they put this turf down. So in other words, you have the drainage, you have the grading, a lot of that work. So no, I would estimate that that carpet, the replacement, and I'd really have to ask a vendor that. I don't have a great question, but I can give you a couple of examples. 6, 7 years ago, to replace that carpet probably would have been $800,000. The carpet itself for this project will cost approximately $300,000. The site work being the other $250,000, meaning moving the gravel around, putting the perimeter in, etc. So the carpet itself will cost about $300,000. What that'll cost in 14 years, I couldn't tell you.
But it would just be the carpet at that point? Just
Correct.
To be replaced. And do you know, and I'm not sure if you're the right person to ask, but who has to approve the construction to the field? Is this something that goes before the planning board and so forth, or?
Great question. The process is we start with the school board, then we go to town council, then the planning board, and I'm going to look over here to Graham because he's been through this with the lights. What am I missing?
That's it. Typically, the town will take ownership like they did the lights, if they want to take ownership. They do the lights. So after this meeting, and we have to start here to approve us to go forward. The next would be next month's town council meeting. And then after that, we have to go to the planning board workshop and then the planning board. So it's about a 4-month approval process for the town. The town does take ownership like they have the lights. Right? They're not in yet. That will be part. And this field will be just like any other field, athletic field in Cape Elizabeth, dictated by use by the town, the school, community services, and everything else.
Thank you.
I did have another question I thought of. All the representations of the field that you used, I think, were basically gridirons for football, but you indicated they could all be used for all sports. I'm trying to get a vision of how you play baseball on a field like that or softball. Can you?
This project, the answer is if you wanted to use this surface for a baseball field, you could. We had the athletic director, when we first started this, we had the athletic director from Wesleyan University come up and spend some time with us and help us understand everything that they went through. And they actually put one in on their baseball field. They are currently putting one in for a dedicated lacrosse and field hockey field. I think primarily the uses would be field hockey, football, lacrosse, soccer, physical education classes, youth sports across the spectrum, etc. You can even go off and hit golf balls off it if you want to. I mean, the uses are endless. It's very sturdy. And I hope you've had a chance to review the information that we gave you, the program statement, testimonials from Aaron Filio and Mark Tinkham. The mock schedule we did was we took a week in the life of this field to show the versatility of it, both in the fall and the spring.
That was very helpful, and we did receive that the week prior to this meeting, so appreciate that time to give us that advanced information.
I have a comment.
Yeah, please do.
I just want to say, I think that this project has tremendous long-term benefits for this community, and I really want to commend Mike and Graham and all the other folks. I know there's a large group who's really been working hard. I know this has been discussed for a while in this community, and to get the traction finally and the leadership around this and the momentum and the enthusiasm, I mean, I think it seems like this is a time we really, it's a great opportunity for the whole community to act on this. And I want to thank you, Mike, and all the other folks who've been really instrumental in trying to move this ahead to get it to this point. Because I see it as just as a huge benefit for our overall community. So thanks to all of you.
You're welcome.
I have one last question. You do too. Okay. The question being the endowment. Is that something that would be set up through the town or through the group that's currently doing the fundraising at this time?
This is something that we were told was a prerequisite by a certain number of people. They said to us, they recommended to us, pay for the initial installation, and you have to figure out a way to pay for it to replace it 14 years from now. So that's our way of trying to address that issue. Do I think it's fair? No, I don't. I talked to the person that runs the field at Fitzpatrick, and again, they're generating an enormous amount of rental income. And my question to that person was, are you applying that rental income to the replacement of the turf? And he goes, no, I wish we were, but we're not. We're putting it back into the general fund. And I said, well, what happens when you need to replace that turf? And he said, I just have to go back begging once again.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing, that field, 4,000 hours of use over 5 years. You step on it today, it looks brand new.
Yeah.
So that's an open issue for us as far as the funding of that replacement.
And that's a decision that the town council will ultimately make?
I would imagine there's a couple open issues there. One is money to help start that effort. The next one is rental income. You know, can it be applied to the replacement of that 14 years from now? There's a policy in town about gate receipts. You know, now that you have a facility like this with bleachers and lights, you know, can you start to apply a portion of the gate receipts, which should be far larger than the town has ever seen? You know, can those be applied to the replacement of that turf 14 years from now? Those are questions that need to be answered.
Yeah. Well, it's a great revenue generator for the town, and it certainly has a benefit to the students and the parents and the community. If you could just figure out how to control the mosquito population there at 6 o'clock at night, it'd be another Benny. But thank you. Rebecca has a question also, and Trish.
I think this may be more a question to the board. Who currently owns the fields? I mean,
It's my understanding the town does.
Town does. And they maintain it as part of the
Okay.
one-town concept.
Okay, and who would this, we don't currently charge for games, for entrance?
Some
Except
do.
for basketball?
Football does and basketball does, and there may be other sports that I'm not aware of.
Every game?
Yes.
And where does that money go?
Sue Weatherby's here, and she's the best person to answer that as she talks. Sorry, Sue. But it's my understanding, as we were talking yesterday, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, that that goes into a general athletic fund? Yes.
Which is a school budget fund. It's a...
It says athletic general fund. It doesn't say school general fund in policy. I don't know if they're one and the same or not.
Do we see that reported in the school budget?
I don't think so.
So that's not a school funds, those aren't school funds?
It's kept at the high school. Those funds are part of the high school activity account.
And then what does that fund support?
Where's Jeff?
I will have to get specifics from Keith. My understanding is, my guess is, when I talk to Keith about it, he's going to tell me that basketball is the largest recipient, and they go to support the basketball program and athletic programs. But it all goes to support the athletic budget and the athletic program directly.
Oh. It's the first
But understand that there are not that many sports, actually, are outdoor sports, with the exception of football. I think football may be the only outdoor sport that does collect gate receipts. The only sport that collects any significant gate receipts is through the basketball program. I mean, hockey charges admission too, but that goes to fund the purchase of ice time. Because right now the boosters play a large percentage of the ice time for the school.
So,
With respect to football, the money that's collected at the gates, my understanding, goes to the Boosters Organization, which is responsible for paying 6 coaches with a budget of over $20,000 a year. So I think that's the answer to football.
Right, that money does not go into the school.
It does not go into general school. It goes to the Boosters Organization, which is responsible for paying most of the costs of the program.
so if this were implemented, the only cost to the schools would be the $5,000 in yearly maintenance. Is that correct? That's to the town, it's not to the schools.
The town currently performs the maintenance on all of
Right.
the fields, whether
Right.
we think of them as ours or we think of them as towns, they pay for the maintenance.
When we looked at this as part of the building project a couple years ago, the implication was that the actual maintenance costs come out less on an artificial turf field than it does for the mowing and the fertilizing and the resting and everything else, irregardless of the number of hours that the turf is played on or the revenue it generated.
There are two things that you need to do to maintain the field and maintain it well. And one is to sweep it periodically and move the rubber sub base around and make sure that it's It's spread out evenly amongst the field, and we intend to buy a machine to do that, to furnish that to the town. And then the other one is the disinfecting of the field. And the disinfecting of the field here it's an issue, but it wouldn't be as much of an issue as if we were in California or Florida where it's warm all the time. The reality is this field is probably going to sit dormant, 3.5 months out of the year.
Two last questions, if it's okay. Are we going to be paying the electricity bill for the lights? I can't remember.
I don't know where that meter is, but I'm guessing it probably goes back towards the school.
That was, when we went through the lights, that was addressed, it does go back through the school, but if you remember back, I think we came to the
already.
school board last summer.
Right.
That the lights going in, because they're so efficient and everything else, is not going to take that much usage.
That was forecasting all of the new sports that would be used on turf?
That was not, that was on a grass field, so that has not been.
Right. So there could be an impact in that area. I'm just trying to make sure we have the full picture.
The efficiency with those lights, I don't think you're going to notice it. There will be extended costs, but through rentals, the fees, there should be plenty of money to be generated down there to.
But we don't get that money. But we don't get that money. That money goes someplace separate from the school budgets. The electricity budget will come from our budget, but we will not get the benefits from any of their ticket sales. And I've just spent a lot of time looking at the budget, and electricity is costing an awful lot of money right now. But I do understand what you're saying, but at some point, if maybe we could have a better forecast of what we would be looking at, just so we can prove that it was not deemed as a significant increase in expense to the school budget. And then I only have one other question. It's because my husband was a lacrosse player, and he wants to know, can you get burns on this turf?
You can, but it's not nearly as drastic as they were. He's thinking of the first generation of turf. And I'd invite you to come down and feel it and feel the absorption of it.
I'd like to.
Is it possible to get burned? Absolutely, but not a dramatic one, or not a deep burn.
Thank you.
Does the artificial turf require any different equipment for the kids to have, rather than, as far as footwear or anything like that?
Same cleats they'd use on grass.
Is there a comment from the peanut gallery out there?
Yes.
Come on up, Sue.
I just wanted to answer Rebecca's question relative to the cost of the lights. That money collected would go into the enterprise account that we have now for use of facilities. And if you recall, Pauline brings that money back to the board in June for recommendations on how that money should be spent. It's just like renting the building. It's that same account. In the past, we've used it to hire additional custodial services for the summer, but there would be even more money generated because we would charge those people a certain amount if they were using the field in daylight hours and an additional amount if they were using them and had to have the lights on. So that money does go back to you folks for a vote for how you want it distributed.
I'm getting really old.
So in theory, Sue, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was just making a wise remark. But I'm very old and I don't remember that. But
Yeah, I mean, what we're being asked to consider on the new business tonight is just the fundraising piece of this. But I think we do need to take a look at the whole issue of gate receipts, if they're going to continue, and/or rental income from there, and develop a model where we can, track things like the cost of electricity, and from that enterprise account, subtract right off the top the reimbursement for school-borne expenses related to the use and maintenance of that field. Because I just know in my heart of hearts, when all is said and done, that stuff is going to devolve onto us. And it really makes no difference. There's going to be an additional cost associated with it. And if we continue to operate under these restraints that we may or may not have, we simply won't have the funds, and it doesn't make a difference if it's $1,000 or $10,000. So I want to make sure, as I think Rebecca wants to do, is that, you know, we've got all the bases covered, because I think this is a great idea, but I think it's, you know, based on past experience and everything else, you know, if our only role is to approve fundraising, I have no issue with that at all. You know, I think the next piece of it is, you know, falls under purview of planning and town council, but
Actually, Mike and Graham came in and sat down with me this week, and we went over what the current policy is for gate receipts. As it stands, I told him that we will be reviewing them as part of the co-curricular committee. So I also brought those to Mark's attention, since he was a piece of this committee as well, and he and I went over those policies. And we also talked about supervision, that when the field was being used, that part of that enterprise account would have to pay for supervisors, and so forth. So we have looked ahead to do that. And I think they are pretty proactive and understand what it's going to take. But they're going to build the field, hand it to the school board or the town for management of it. And at that time, a lot of those decisions will have to be made, but we are in the discussion phases.
Thanks, Sue.
You're welcome.
Any last questions?
If I could just make one final comment. If you have or know of anybody that's involved in the sports programs, our youth effort right now, I coach about 60 kids in youth lacrosse, and we're over at Gullcrest Field. And if you want to see the need for a facility like this, I'd ask you to, when next time you go to the transfer station, go over to Gullcrest, go walk the field that we're playing on currently, and I think you'll understand the need why this would make have such a positive impact on the community. The fact that you have literally 3 teams practicing on one field, that's both on the boys' side and the girls' side. And this is not, I'm not condemning Bob Malley and Forrest King. In fact, it's just the opposite. I think those guys are fantastic. I think they do a great job, the Public Works folks. They are in a no-win situation. There's way too much play for the number of fields that we have. And this will help relieve that pressure.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll be taking a vote regarding consideration to have you move this forward later on in the evening under new business. But all this information was very helpful, and we appreciate your coming tonight to pass that on.
Thanks for your time.
Great, thank you.
thank you.
We have a report regarding the Casco Bay Educational Alliance meeting on the select panel report from the Maine Department of Education that some of the members attended last week, and Ann's going to share that with us this evening.
Okay, well, let's see, a couple of us, Elaine, Alan, Trish, myself, and Sarah Simmons, did I miss anybody? Alan? All attended a presentation last week organized by the Casco Bay Education Alliance, of which we're a member. And it was an evening to present the findings of the select panel report, which is the somewhat controversial report that came out in the fall that, among other items, what people mostly probably remember from the newspaper, recommended that school districts across the state be reduced from 286 to 35. So the presentation was given by Wes Bonney and Jean Flanagan, both of whom were on that select panel. And I found it, really very, very interesting and informative, since really all I had read about it, I had read in the newspapers, and we know where that can take us. But I thought maybe I would just really briefly give some highlights of the report, because I would think most people who are listening really are not all that familiar. And one of the things I learned that night is that this really is a report that's being taken very seriously. Whether all the recommendations are going to be followed or to what extent they're going to be revised what we heard that night was that this will be moving ahead in the legislature, and there are a number of changes that can be anticipated across the state in our educational system. So what I thought I would do is just give a real brief sort of recap of the report. There are 4 main focus areas for recommended change within the report. Those are governance and political organization, quality of teaching and student learning, technology, and societal attitudes. So just to kind of highlight, this won't take long, just a couple of things in each of those 4 areas so that people who are watching can, kind of get a glimpse of the kinds of issues that they're going to be grappling with as they move forward and taking this through the legislative process. Under governance and political organization, 3 of the recommendations that the panel made are to, as I said earlier, reduce the number of districts across the state to 35 from its current 286. So clearly that means a lot of consolidating of school districts. A second recommendation under that area is expanding school choice, allowing kids to choose within their communities or among communities which school they might attend. And a third one is to offer more alternative educational opportunities for all students who need to approach education differently. Those are just 3. There are probably like 6 or 7 in each of these areas, but in the interest of time, I thought I'd just sort of pull a couple of them. Under quality of teaching and student learning, a couple of their recommendations include establishing salary levels to attract well-qualified teachers. Currently, in Maine, we've been hearing this recently, but our Maine teachers rank 35th in the nation in terms of salary. A second recommendation is creating incentive programs for difficult-to-fill fields such as mathematics and science. And then a third recommendation is increasing the length of the school day as well as the length of the year. There are only 8 other states that have 175 school days, and the average in other countries is 193. In the area of technology, a couple of recommendations that they're making are, one is to give each student in grades 5 through 12 individual laptops to take home. So that's laptops for all students in grades 5 through 12. A second recommendation on technology is to really beef up teacher training to integrate technology within daily work across all teaching areas. And then the fourth area of societal attitudes, some of the recommendations include a statewide PR campaign to underscore the importance of educational achievement. The second one is to eliminate all tracking across the board of all students within all grades. And a third one is to partially fund 2 years of college for all students within the state who are in need financially. So those are just some things that, there are a lot of other recommendations that come out of that. I'm sure you all sitting here are probably really well-versed in what the report came out and addressed. But it was pretty interesting, and just the last thing I wanted to say, one of the biggest things I learned was that I was under the understanding that really the main purpose of it was to save funds. And actually that came up and it was discussed, and whatever funds would be saved through the consolidation of schools would then in turn be reallocated back into educational programming in various ways. So from what I had read in the newspaper, that was the impression I got. That's what happens when you get your information through the newspaper. But I think that that's a really important point, to get out there to people, that any savings would be put back into learning and teaching.
I'd just like to add that another component of this evening that we attended was that we had 6 or 7 other school boards from around Cumberland County that attended with us. And after the presentation, we did break out into small cross-district groups where we were able to have discussion with other school board members, and we talked about the opportunities and the challenges some of these initiatives would involve. And I have to say that as much as I kind of went in with not a closed mind, I was open, but I had opinions about some of the things I had read about, it was enlightening to say, this might work. This wouldn't be perfect, but there are some baby steps that we might be able to take along the way where our students and our teachers could benefit from some of the consolidation that might occur with not necessarily 35 districts across the state, but maybe that number might be 150. And the other message that I took away was this would be to improve student learning across the state with what I felt was going to be a vast improvement in what happened in northern Maine, and that is the responsibility of all of us. So I saw some of that message there that evening, too. So, any other impressions or questions from other board members regarding that? Great. Thank you, Ann, for sharing that. We have an announcement of resignations.
I have one resignation this evening. I would like to add that after that, I'd also like to do a nomination, if I could. The resignation is from Kimberly Hanlon, who is a contracted physical therapist here in the school system, and she is planning to leave our school system on the last day of school, June 17th, to join her husband in Washington, D.C., where he has just taken a job. So I'm putting her resignation before you this evening.
Thank you.
And then can I do an addition?
Yes.
Mr. Eismeyer and I have spent a lot of time together the last couple of weeks with a lot of issues. We have one, what we feel is very good news, and so I'd like to ask Mr. Eismeyer if he could speak to this issue.
Thanks, Alan. We have spent some time together, and when this is about the teacher leader position, I want to thank Alan for being so supportive of the concept, and we had an opportunity to get a school-wide planning team together in the fall, and we were able to focus the job more and get a job description out there we think will help us move forward. It was a rigorous process. I think it was good for the participants and good for the school, and I'm very pleased to introduce Becky Swift tonight as a teacher leader for next year. And Becky was kind enough to be here tonight.
I'm going to follow in our principal of the day footsteps and keep my remarks as a quiet leader very brief. I'm just very excited professionally for this challenge, and after spending 21 years at Pond Cove, I truly feel we have an exceptional staff, and I look forward to working really closely with all of them now as we move forward for the benefit of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. And just so you know, I mean, the group planning was so good that part of the plan was for the new teacher leader to get out and about the school, because you get a different point of view as a teacher leader. So, and Becky already started that today. We had our walkthrough on Monday, and we had the CEIF-sponsored professional development consulting come. So Becky went to all the team meetings today to get more of a feel for where we're going. So it's been a great process, and I really thank Alan for supporting it, and for you for supporting it too. And I'm sure she'll be great at it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Eismeyer. Those are the two that I have this evening.
Great, thank you. Moving on to recognition, we have a couple this evening. I'd like to start off with the honor of recognizing 4 high school students who have been recognized as presidential scholar candidates. They are chosen on the basis of their both academic and school involvement accomplishments, and I'm pleased to say that they are Carlin Geyer, Grace Needleman, Zach Rio, and Jessica Danielson. So I'm sure that the school board joins me in congratulating them on that accomplishment. We also have some recognitions regarding our band program. Since our last meeting, the concert jazz band has won the first place in their class at the Maine State Jazz Festival. Our jazz band 2 ensemble won first place in their class again at the Maine State Jazz Festival. We have some individual recognitions on part of our performers. Luke Carey was the outstanding musician in multi-band class. Hannah Kramer was outstanding musician in multi-band class.
Luke Carey again, another outstanding musician in a combo class. We have John Butterworth, who was an outstanding musician for Division II, and Jeff Witherall was an outstanding musician in Division II and also an outstanding musician in the combo class. So to all those participants, congratulations. We have an award also to the Cape Elizabeth High School Wind Symphony. They were awarded a gold medal at the Maine Band Directors Association, which is a state concert band festival event. And as we mentioned at last month's meeting, we were in the middle of competing in the regionals for the theater one-act plays, and the audience production did win was the regional winner in that festival. So to all those people, congratulations to all the students and the directors and teachers that led them.
Excuse me, Elaine?
Yeah?
Do you think there's some possibility of moving item number 12 to the next item so the gentlemen who have been working so hard on the turf field can go home?
I have one more recognition, if I could, and then I would see if we can make that change. I also have a recognition from the middle school, and this is in regards to a new team that we have, which is called the National History Day, which is an event that took place up in Augusta last week, where there were a multitude of middle school students who competed in all 4 categories, of which they're judged on a paper, a performance, an exhibit, and a documentary. They're both individual and group participants, and they came away with first place, and they will be looking to compete down at the University of Maryland at the Nationals in June, and we'll hear a little bit more about that later on with a request from them. I would just like to mention some of the students have participated. We have Peter Brigham, who is a second place in the individual documentary. Sydney Mays, who won second place for their individual paper. Macaulay Cliff and Kristen Kearney was first place for the group documentary. Emily Atwood and Meredith Riker won second place for group documentary. Gabe Donahue and Jack Fisher won second place for their group performance, and Grant Backer and Will Pierce won second place for the group exhibit. And again, this was led by Sarah Welch, who is one of our teachers at the middle school who currently teaches 8th grade social studies. And I don't know whether we want to ask Trish for a little bit of information on that, but it certainly was an honor. I know your son was involved, so.
Yeah, I think they did very well. I do think that Sarah Welch deserves a lot of credit. She herself, I believe, was a National History Day. I'm not exactly sure what the right title is, but she started this on her own. She's worked very hard with all of the students, and I think they clearly worked hard, but I think a lot of the credit goes to her as a coach.
Thank you. Now, Kevin, you had a request to move something.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of 12A, if we could move that up so the gentlemen who have been working on the fields can go home and perhaps get some dinner or relax with their families.
I don't have a problem with that. Is there?
I second that.
Thank you. All those in favor of moving? Thank you. 7-0. We will make that adjustment for consideration of the request to proceed with fundraising for artificial turf on the lower athletic field at the high school. Do I have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion?
Just a thank you to the people who are working on it.
Great. All those in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Thank you for making the motion to move that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Moving on to the superintendent's report. Alan?
Yes. There are a couple pieces here that I'm going to ask someone else to report on. The first one is on the NEASC workshop, which we had a couple of weeks ago, and Jeff is going to speak to that briefly, and also the follow-up letter that has come from, or is coming from, NEASC.
I'm going to start this the comment that I want to make about the workshop and the news that came out of the workshop by stepping back a few years in time, if I can, and just sort of give a context. And I'm not sure if it was 4 or 5 years ago. The school district began to do some work, and particularly in the high school, but in the other schools as well, pursuant to the future direction plan, and spending a good amount of time developing and beginning to develop under Sarah Simmons' leadership a coherent, sequenced curriculum where things would flow naturally from year to year to year. And very shortly after that took place, and I'm not going to be held to the chronology because I'm doing this from memory, the state came out with its first publication defining the criteria for a local assessment system to measure kids' attainment of the learning results. And I would say that in the past, since that time, the state has gone through many stops and starts, and every time the state stopped and started in this area and lurched and went left and right, schools, including Cape Elizabeth High School and certainly the other schools as well, did the same thing. So the curriculum really was definitely put in a second fiddle position in terms of importance and priority compared to assessment. So sort of we were developing assessments to meet the standards that we frankly, for the most part, didn't believe made any sense, but we continued to try to do that. We also, as we moved into our accreditation work, there was a good amount of work that's required in order to meet the standards under the assessment standard for the New England Association to develop some cross-cutting rubrics that would be applied from department to department to department in critical areas that we've identified: writing, reading, problem solving, and I'm blanking out on the other ones, but there are several of them. And we did develop the rubrics, but I have to say in all honesty that that work as well, in terms of applying those rubrics and actually implementing them cross-curriculum, was very definitely in not even a second fiddle. It was a third or fourth fiddle in the past couple of years. Well, I attended the NEASC workshop with principals from a number of other schools, and at the end of the session, Pam Gray-Bennett, who's the director of the New England Association, told the principals who were gathered there that they could have an opportunity to come up to her because the commission has voted on accreditation status. And I was quite stunned and not pleased to learn that Cape Elizabeth High School has been voted by the commission to be placed on warning status with respect to our accreditation. And the two areas that have caused the commission to do that have to do with curriculum and assessment. And I talked to Janet Allison at the New England Association today to try to make sure I was guessing, because we haven't gotten the official letter yet, what the assessment piece was, since we felt in the high school that we spent the last 4 years focusing on assessment. Well, the assessment that we've been focusing on really has nothing to do with the assessment that the New England Association has been looking for, which is the application of the rubrics around reading, writing, problem solving, and those other things across the curriculum. And so as a result, they've sort of put our performance through their lens and said, here's the major areas where we have weaknesses, and now it's we're going to pay the piper. And so we have a lot of work to do, and I've already started sort of ramping things up in terms of the work on curriculum, and have indicated to department chairs at the high school that that is going to become a nearly single-minded focus. Under Alan and Sarah's leadership this year, that work was already underway, but I think at the high school it's going to have to be expedited even further, because as I understand it, and I haven't gotten the letter yet, that we will be required by the New England Association to have in place within either 6 months or a year, it's up to the commission, and I haven't gotten the letter yet, to have a sequenced and written coherent curriculum in place and complete. That's a lot of work. And it will have to become a huge area of emphasis the remainder of this year and next year as well. And I'm certainly hoping that the common planning time, which has been in place for the last few years, will continue to be in place to allow that to continue to happen. If not, we'll still do the work. We'll figure out how we're going to make it work. But we're under some significant charge, and as soon as I get the letter from the New England Association to spell it out, I will certainly transmit it to Alan, and I'm sure he'll circulate it to board members. I did talk to Janet today, and my understanding is that I can expect that sort of late next week sometime.
Thank you, Mr. Shedd.
I don't think, by the way, that we're necessarily going to be the only school in Maine, because part of the conversation I had with Janet as well was about the New England Association's perception of what is going on in Maine that's causing some schools to be in difficulty. I think not us alone, but certainly I don't like the fact that Cape Elizabeth High School is put in that position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I did have one question, if I could ask you, Al.
Sure.
In regards to it, is that in the report that we saw at the workshop, there, at the end of the report, it identified maybe 12 different things under the substantiative change policy that we had to let them know if we had any changes in our student-teacher ratio, that type of thing. Were those identified specifically as a result of their report, or is that like a standard thing that everybody has to do?
Every year, every accredited high school has to, at the end of the year, has to provide a report about any substantive change. And that can be things from the change in who the school board chair is to the change in the superintendent, but it also involves things, anything that could significantly impact the quality of the education delivered in the high school, either positively or negatively.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to submit that report sometime within the next month. I can't remember exactly what the deadline for that is.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Shedd for being willing to speak to this tonight, because as you know, the push has been on curriculum for a while here, and certainly that report gives us another reason why we need to do it and do it quickly. And we are moving quickly ahead. That committee has met 3 times already in the last 2 months, and we have another meeting coming up. So not only is high school moving very rapidly, but the entire system is. So I'm pleased that we are in the process at this point. I will mention very briefly, because I heard Tom mention it and I meant to put it on the agenda. Yesterday, I spent time all day long at Pond Cove, along with I think 16 other people, doing visitations to all of the classrooms down there. It was an amazing experience. I happened to get 3rd and 4th grade classrooms, so I went back from a 3rd to a 4th to a 3rd to a 4th, and it was really fascinating to see the writing process and how it's occurring. And we had teachers with us, both in-house. We also had some teachers from Lakes Region and Greeley, am I correct? And who were there also to do this with us. So it was an amazing experience, and I personally learned a lot, and I think the rest of us did from our discussions afterwards. So I want to thank Tom for the work, because it's a lot of work to put something like that together, and it went very, very well. Would also mention that as far as high school renovation project is concerned, during April vacation, we should be picking up some of the last pieces. Probably the one that will be the most visible is extending the driveway on the right-hand side, moving it back to widen it out to some extent. We also have some completion projects to be done at the high school. But basically, we are at the end, getting near the end of the road. There was a walkthrough the other day to check out each floor and where we were. So we're looking forward to, as school closes, looking forward to getting in there and getting that high school completely clean from stem to stern after 2 years of being in the condition it is in. So we're really looking forward to that as well. I do have in front of me the 2 reports that I noted to you earlier. Elaine, you read one of them as far as students who participated in the geography workshops. Those students have an opportunity to go to University of Maryland and College Park, Maryland. And I have a request this evening, which is at the last minute because they just found out this was going to be happening, requesting that they be allowed to do this. At this point in time, there will be 12 students and 2 chaperones, which meets the criteria that you have in your board policy. Their plan is to raise all of their money. We have no money in budget for this. I talked to Steve today, and they need to raise approximately $6,000 for this. I think $1,500 has already come in, and they have several projects in the process, and probably, again, Trish, you know more about what they're doing as far as fundraising, but I do know that they're in that process right now.
Well, since anyone who is running out of Yankee candles, I think you could probably purchase one. That's one fundraiser, but I think the Middle School Parents Association graciously donated, or generously donated some money, and I think there'll be some other fundraising ideas. group will come up with.
So again, I think, I want to say, like Elaine did, I think it's wonderful to think, it's the first year we've done this, and the results of it in this very first year is amazing. And so I'm really pleased that these young people are going to get a chance to go to Maryland and to represent Cape Elizabeth down there and represent the state of Maine as well. The second request I have to you is from Jake Jackson. Jake is taking a group to Greece. The original plan was that this would be totally during vacation time. However, just last week, I heard from Jeff that there had been a change in their schedule, and as a result of the change in their schedule, they have to leave late Thursday or early Friday morning. I can't remember which it is. Okay, so they will not be here on a Friday. Once that happens, I need to bring that to the board because it becomes a board issue because they're leaving. I've talked with Jake. I have attached to this all of the agendas and schedules for the trip, where they will be flying out of, and their trip over to Greece. If you had, I didn't pass you the summary of the trip because I can't let any of you go, so I figured I better not let you see it. It's an amazing trip, both on the mainland and also on the islands as well, and an amazing opportunity. Talked with Jake yesterday, as I said, and I know today, and she brought this final material to me, but I have checked all of the prerequisites, which now I do automatically when I get these trips. And all of those prerequisites are met from EF and the EF Travel Company. So those are the two that are the newest ones that have just come into me within the last couple of days.
Thank you. So we need a vote to approve each one separately. Can I have a motion on the trip for the National History Day group to attend the competition in Maryland in June?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or further questions? All those in favor? 7-0. Thank you. The second trip, which was the trip that Alan just explained to us regarding Greece, this is to have an additional day off from school, which is that Friday preceding the April school vacation. Do I have a motion to accept approval of the missing school for this trip?
So moved.
Thank you, Trish. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, just a quick question to clarify. You said an extra day off from school. If I understood the presentation, Friday is the only day?
Friday is the only school day. Normally it would have been Saturday to Saturday, I believe.
Okay, so
But
we're
a
only
bit back up
talking one school day, not, okay. Yeah.
Oh, additional, I meant,
No,
Additional besides April school vacation.
Yeah, but I just wanted to play safe.
okay, great. All those in favor? 7-0. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
We are now moving into the committee reports. I'm going to start off with Finance Committee. Rebecca?
Well, I'll start off with an apology to the Finance Committee and the school board, because as I was coming here, I became aware that I did not provide the minutes from our last meeting before my report tonight. So I asked the other committee members to add or comment if you think I've missed anything. We met on March 20th, 12:30 in the superintendent's office. Kathy, Linda, myself, and Elaine were present. Items discussed. Gary Lanoy is going around the schools to make sure that the computers are programmed to go off at a set time as an energy-saving measure. And he's 100% sure that all lab computers currently are programmed to do that. We reviewed the energy report, and we've got good news and we've got bad news. The good news is that we're not going to go over as much as was originally projected by the budget. I believe, let's see, oil was originally projected to go over budget by $120,000, and now it's projected to be over by $90,000. And gasoline was projected to be over by $29,000, and it's going to be projected now at $17,000. So I think we can probably thank Mother Nature for most of that. Oh, so I'm sorry, the total is original projection of 179,000, a revised projection of 136,000. We reviewed the food service report, and roughly there are only 10 accounts that are over $40. The rest are below. So that is an indication that possibly what we're experiencing is just a cycle through for families as they continue to respond to the notices that are going out. Sue is talking to Dean about linking her accounts with PowerSchool to enable an email, for lack of a better word, alert system. I apologize. It came to my mind. And I think the only other thing I want to say is that this afternoon, the town council has changed the location of of the workshop for Thursday night to the high school cafeteria. And it is posted on the website, and it is posted on the doors. I believe that's it. Our next meeting, I don't know. It's Tuesday. No.
Tuesday, April 25th at 12:30.
That would be it. Exactly.
Great, thank you, Rebecca.
The Planning Committee, Trish?
The Planning Committee met on March 29th. Alan reported that the action teams had met and that all felt that the work on the future directions plan should continue, and as many of the action steps are still valuable in spite of the plan being 5 years old. Sarah Simmons joined us at the meeting, and she reported on a community-wide forum which was held in, or sponsored by the Falmouth School Department, which she attended, and they used it as a way to gather data for their 18-month plan. I think we sort of thought that that was similar to ours. The committee began talking after that about planning some type of community-wide forum here in Cape to refocus on our future direction plan. We also discussed the possibility of having the future direction plan as a workshop topic for an upcoming school board workshop, to sort of refocus energies and bring people up to speed on really what's entailed in the plan. Our next meeting is April 24th.
Thank you, Trish. Policy Committee, Ann?
The Policy Committee met on March 21st. Sue Weatherby attended to help present 6 different policies and guidelines that were all related to school bus transportation and management issues. And I'm not going to go over those because we're going to be presenting them shortly for first reading, so I'll just mention the names at that time. We also discussed policy IHOA, which is field trips and excursions. I think now changed to a different name, but anyway, Jeff has been doing a lot of work around drafting some language for that, and we're still working on that. And then the third item was policy EFI, food services records, and that will also be presented later this evening for first reading.
Great. Substance Abuse Policy Review Subcommittee, Trish?
We haven't met since our last meeting. We did bring the draft of, the recommended draft to the policy committee today, actually. And there were a few questions that came up, and we will look into those in hopes of preparing the draft policy for first reading in May.
Thank you very much. And especially thank you for all the work on that committee. There were a lot of people giving input, and there were a lot of ideas out there, and it was managed wonderfully, so thank you.
Thank you.
The Wellness Committee.
The Wellness Subcommittee met on March 16th. This was our second meeting of this committee, and what this committee, it's a subcommittee of the policy committee. This is in response to federal mandates to establish a wellness policy within every school across the country by the fall of '06. What we started off by doing was having our 3 principals give a report on what their schools are each doing in the 5 related areas, each of the 5 areas that has to be addressed in the policy. And just real quickly, those areas are setting nutrition education goals, setting physical activity goals, establishing nutrition standards for all foods available on school campus, setting goals for other school-based activities designed to promote student wellness, and setting goals for measurement and evaluation. So each of the principals gave us an update on what's happening in their schools around those 5 areas. And then we talked a bit about doing a survey to the school community, to staff, to parents, and to students around all these various wellness issues. And Steve Connolly was very helpful in getting a lot of different information that Dean Zaharis helped him to get from across the country, different work that's been going on to look at wellness issues and surveys and all that stuff. So we're going to be working on figuring out what might be the best way to get input from our school population around this wellness issue. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Personnel Committee, Kathy?
The Personnel Committee met April 3rd, and we discussed the finalized job descriptions for head coach and assistant head coach, which we received from Keith Weatherby's office. We also went over multiple job descriptions which Sue Weatherby had brought to us for the community service offices. And also, these job descriptions are being put together in a packet funneled through Pauline, I believe, and to be given to the school board as part of the May school board meeting. So there should be a fairly large packet. As soon as it's ready, we'll get it to folks so they can start to review it. We also reviewed and made recommendations on the policy. I think it was HP, I forgot to bring it, but it's board negotiating agents, which we forwarded to the policy committee for their perusal. And I wanted to make a change. The personnel committee is not meeting Monday, April 24th. Their next meeting is Monday, May 22nd at 1 p.m. in the Jordan Conference Room.
Thank you. Communications Committee, Rebecca.
Well, we're meeting tomorrow afternoon at 3:05, and we have not had a report to make, but we will in May.
Okay, great, thank you. The Student Extracurricular Committee, Kevin.
Yeah, between Keith's knee and my thing, we haven't been able to come up with any meeting dates, and we've been actually giving our meeting dates away to Alan for other purposes. We do have to have a meeting in April. I feel that there's an onus on us to get to work on the athletic policies. I have emailed everyone asking them to review the policies that are in our committee book, make recommendations. I have heard, I believe, from both Elaine and Sue, some questions and concerns relative to new athletic policies that we need to get involved with. So there will be another email out once again tomorrow attempting to put together a meeting for some time after the April vacation. And we will, if we need to have another one in the early part of May, we'll do that as well.
Great, thank you. Reports from our non-board committees. Rebecca, do you have anything in regards to the legislative?
Yes. I believe I had actually asked, and I think the board accepted putting Tabor on our agenda this evening, and you'll notice it isn't on. That is because Tabor is in limbo until the Supreme Court of Maine decides about the signatures of the petition. So I'm keeping tabs on that, and as soon as I know, get a better feel of what's going to be happening or not happening, I'll probably speak with Alan and Elaine to see if it's necessary or not to put something on the agenda. The other thing I just wanted to let you know is that, and I apologize if I've already mentioned this, I can't even remember the sequence of events and timing, but I did send an email to Jim Ryer and Suzanne Cameron and one other individual up in
the other one in the finance department. Can't think of her name.
Yeah, so 3 individuals up in Augusta asking for clarification of the the state funding allocation and a delineation of EPS funding and LD1 funding. Not only did I not get an answer, but I did not get a response at all from any of them. No acknowledgement of receipt of the email. So Alan kindly forwarded my email to Connie Goldman to see if she could perhaps get something to happen. But as far as I know, we have not received a response from Connie on this. My sense is nobody wants to touch this with a 10-foot pole. But yet I'll keep.
But thank you for
I'll
trying.
keep trying.
And thank you so much for putting some information. I think it was you in all of our mailboxes regarding Tabor, so that we can help formulate the stand that we're going to take on that. At this point, we have also a report from the Cape Elizabeth Education Foundation. I'd just like to share that they had a meeting yesterday evening where they recognized outgoing members of their SEAF board and welcomed some incoming members. At that time, there was also a thank you to Dave Weatherby, who is their president, and they welcomed Dave Sherman, who will be their new president for the next upcoming year for SEAF. They have a grants committee cycle that is ending, I believe it's this Friday, the 14th, where they'll be granting both classroom grants and professional development grants, and they will have an approval process that will probably run them into mid to late May, and they're looking, they have made available $50,000 to those grants. Also, I want to mention as far as their large impact grants, they have requested to meet with Alan and the DLT to discuss some possible impact grants at Pond Cove and the middle school. And I would just expect that Alan would report back to the board after that meeting regarding that discussion, so that the full board is aware of some of the ideas that are going to be discussed at that time. So again, thank you to SEAF for continuing to work with the school system, and look forward to a good year with that. The next report would be from the PASS General Advisory Committee. Kevin?
Yeah, PASS has been very nice to me lately. They're doing all my work and just passing it under my nose for approval. And we have one meeting coming up that was just postponed. As soon as I know a date, if anyone's interested, I'll let them know. Alan, of course, will be getting the agenda directly. And if you can just put that out to everybody in their boxes. And the other thing that I received today was my invitation to graduation. So I believe after this meeting, the focus will be on year-end events. They end considerably sooner than we do, and that'll be it. And I will be going to the graduation.
Great. Thank you. The Volunteer Advisory Committee, Trish?
I don't have any report that we met in March. We typically only meet, or the committee only meets once a year, so no report probably for another 10 months.
Okay. All right, well, then, we should probably move that off each month and put it back on when we need it. The Board Advisory Committees, we do have a Town Comprehensive Plan Committee. I just wanted to let the board know that they have fallen a little bit behind schedule. There's been a lot of discussion around the comprehensive plan. They've been tied up a lot with housing for the community, but in an effort to still meet their December deadline for having a report back to the Town Council, we are having 2 meetings a month now. So that has put us a little bit back on schedule. The schools will be giving some input under the facilities section of their report, and Alan and I will be working on that for maybe presentation in June, July, but we do have a little more time to work on that, so it was kind of actually very nice to have that. The new business, we have consideration of a request to proceed with, no, we did that. Consideration of the superintendent's recommendation for athletic fee positions for spring 2006.
Okay. I have 4 pages of these. I would assume that I would do 1 page at a time, if that works for all of you. The first one is from Scott Labby, the middle school coaching positions. This is a new coaching nomination. This is Ron Kelton, 7th grade boys lacrosse, and also returning coach Alyssa Anderson, 7th grade softball.
Great. Do I have a motion to accept that recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you. A second? Thank you, Rebecca. Any discussion? Comments? There being none, all those in favor? 6-0. Kevin has stepped out.
The second sheet is from Keith Weatherby at the high school. This is spring coaching recommendations dated April 3rd, 2006. Returning coaches are Tom Tinsman, JV boys baseball, and Adam Waxman, also JV boys baseball. Did I say basketball the first time? If I did, I meant to say, okay, so I said it right. New coaching recommendations, Emily Cole for JV girls lacrosse, and Andrew Lamberth for JV girls lacrosse also.
Great. Do I have a motion to accept those recommendations?
So moved.
Thank you, Trish. A second? Thank you, Linda. Any further comments or discussion? Being none, all those in favor? 6-0.
The next one is also from Scott Labby, the middle school coaching positions. New coaching nominations are Tony Jones, 7th grade baseball, Gina Rossi, 8th grade girls lacrosse, Russell Leonard, 8th grade boys lacrosse, Megan Greenlaw, 8th grade girls softball, Tracy Weatherby, 8th grade track, and Marianne Doss, 7th grade track. Also returning coaches Steve Donovan, 8th grade baseball, Joe Frustacci, expansion baseball, and Gisela Eubanks is 7th grade girls lacrosse.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendations?
So moved.
Thank you. A second? Rebecca? Any questions regarding these nominations for athletic fee positions? Being none, all those in favor? 7-0.
Well,
Thank you,
I
Kevin.
read the agenda before.
And the last sheet is also from Keith Weatherby. This is spring coaching recommendations, which is dated March 21st. Returning coaches are Evan Levada for freshman boys baseball, Adam Waxman for varsity assistant, Tom Tinsman for varsity assistant volunteer, and new coaching recommendations is Greg McIntyre as assistant girls tennis coach.
Do I have a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendations?
So moved.
Thank you, Kevin. A second? Linda? Sorry. Any questions on these recommendations? Being none, all those in favor? 7-0. I'd just like to say thank you to all these coaches for stepping forward. I know that there were some very tight timetables, and a lot of people did step up and are helping coach our youth in those sports, so thank you. Consideration of policies for the first reading. Ann, would you take those through?
Okay, well, let's see. 6 of these are the school bus policies that I referred to earlier. So since this is a first reading, we can just sort of take these all in one batch. Do people have any questions? Are there any individual ones that people would like to go over in more detail?
I'd just like to say that because our policy meetings have so many people involved, it's really, this business meeting tends to be business regarding the policies, but I just wanted you to know that, the public know, that a lot of discussion goes into this, a lot of work, background work goes on in bringing forth these policies to the board. So,
Yeah, a lot of discussions taking place, and I should thank Sue Weatherby for coming to 2 of our policy committee meetings. So thanks, Sue, and for putting the work into reviewing these policies for us. Okay, and then the other non-school bus policy is EFI, food services records. Any thoughts or comments on that one? Okay, great. Then we will be bringing these forward for second reading next month. Thanks.
thank you. Consideration of the proposed school calendar for the year 2006-07.
You gonna do that? Or you want me to?
Oh, go ahead.
We want to
You
use
want me
that
to go
second one?
Okay, well, I have given each of you a new calendar. It should be dated in the upper right-hand corner as 4/11/06. This is the most recently revised one. The calendar is not a lot different than the one this year. There are a couple of subtleties that I just want to mention in there in order to make them work. If you go to the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the end of August. On the end of August, we will start Teacher Day for the high school on the 28th and the 29th. The 29th and the 30th will be Teacher Days for K through 8. You'll note that the difference here is the 30th is set aside as the first student day for high school 9th graders. And the reason we're doing that is if you go down to November, you'll see there is November 7th where it says no school, high school only. That's an election day. And what we're trying to do is keep the high school without students in it that day because we have so many adults going in and out of there. And so what they have done is use one of their days up in August to make that difference. Common practice is always first day of high school is only 9th graders. The second day is 10, 11, and 12. So that's why the difference. Actual classes for students in all other grades, first student day is the 31st, and we'll go the 31st and September 1st. Moving across the calendar, you will see the same number of early release days. Did I say that right? Yes, thank you. Across the calendar, again, are kept on Wednesdays because what we found is when we do have contact from parents, they prefer to have it on the same day of the week, just for convenience sake as far as babysitting, etc. The other days that are on here are fairly typical. You will see as far as high school SATs, we're assuming they'll be on April 7th, but I'm not sure of that at this point. We do have the anticipated MEA test dates as the 5th to the 15th of March, and you see on March 7th an early release day. Our closing day of school for next year is the 13th, as long as I don't have to call school off frequently, or the last day with school called off is the 20th. That's always dangerous. That's if I have to call off 7 days, then it'll be later than that. But that's the way it sets right now. I think other than that, the other days that are on the calendar are fairly consistent with what we've had in the past, and I would entertain any questions you might have about it.
Rebecca?
Could somebody refresh my memory when we started? I believe it started as late arrival days. When did we start implementing those?
2 years? 3 years?
No, not 2. It was longer than that. Or Tom, do you remember? You mean the combination of late start, early releases when we did the hour-and-a-half late start, hour-and-a-half early release?
It's got to be at least 3. It was better.
Yeah, at least. We tried it once, and then I think we abandoned it and came back and did it again. With the feedback was mixed, but overall, the early release was much better. I think one year we tried half and half. Was that last year or the year before? And we shouldn't do that. We should stick with one way or the other.
So we've been, my question isn't necessarily about late arrivals being better or not. I just want to get a sense for when we started pulling out of instruction time, time for common planning. And so we've been doing this this is our 3rd year, do we agree?
3 or 4.
It's 3 or 4. I think the reason why we started it was because we needed that planning time for assessments for the Maine State learning results.
Right.
So whatever year we first had responsibility for that, I have to go back to my records.
So what I raise is I'm very aware, since I am on the curriculum instruction CIA team, that there's going to be some very serious work being done on curriculum next year. But I do want to just kind of throw out to the school board and to Alan is to, keeping in the back of our minds, Is this going to be a permanent fixture, or is this what we determined is to address very specific issues that we need, significant project-based issues that we need to address? And I'm not sure we've really had that conversation.
Yeah. I know that the board had some preliminary conversations in the past, Kevin, at budget time when the middle school wanted to get that common planning time outside of early releases or late starts, and they looked at their elective scheduling for not only the reason of allowing common planning time, but also as regards to course offerings so that they were similar to what other communities had for their middle school curriculum, and that cost associated with $70,000 at that time. So for whatever reason, they found their common planning time in a different way.
And I can see Nancy making that presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Because it's my understanding that the middle school really doesn't have common planning time.
That's right.
They do their work in a different manner.
Well, they have early release days also, so I would assume that that would be considered part of that time.
And that started, I believe, after the Pond Cove, but I could be.
But currently, I'm talking about
Yeah,
currently, they do have it.
But I thought that that came up actually at our curriculum day just recently, and we were talking, because I had asked Steve about that, what those early release days were used for, and unfortunately Steve isn't here, so we can't have him speak to that, and I don't want to, but I thought that was more being used for assessments. I don't know.
I think what you'll find is this current year, with Steve as the new principal there, has been using those days for a variety of issues, including professional leadership, et cetera. I think both Pond Cove and the middle school recognize that next year these days will be used almost entirely for curriculum development, and the high school will be using the days that they have built in with their staffs in the building to do the same thing. And so I think that's the change that you'll see for next year as we move ahead very rapidly to get curriculum in place.
I got just one word about the common planning time. I think the middle school might have something in place for next year, but it's only by team. So the early release gets the whole school. And sometimes we even have an overlap because of the rolling schedule. So we had a joint meeting on the last early release between some middle school and Pond Cove teachers. So there's team joint planning time, which is difficult, but the school ones are really hard. And I don't know where it's going to come from, but the early release has really helped.
Regarding the calendar, I have a question. In August, it's not clear to me, and maybe I'm not quite reading it correctly, but when is the first day of school for 10th, 11th, 12th graders?
The first day of school for 10th, 11th, and 12th will be the 31st. So on the 31st, it'll be 10, 11, 12, and on Friday the 1st, it will be 9, 10, 11, and 12. For grades K through 8, first day will be the 31st, and the second day will be the 1st.
So the first day is on Thursday for everybody except for the ninth graders, which come on Wednesday.
Okay, so should that little
Oh,
reference
wait a
down at the
minute.
bottom?
I'm seeing a no there, so I may have that wrong. I always watch those heads.
That's not right?
No, the high school's the first,
That's
it's
not-
the
This is gonna be
30th, to
really
make up for
clear.
election day.
The first day for ninth graders is the 30th.
I'm sorry,
Right,
that's right.
Wednesday.
That's right.
Right.
Wednesday,
That's right.
and everybody else
First day
goes.
for everybody is
Yeah.
Thursday.
Thursday.
Isn't that what I thought that's what I said?
So,
Okay,
I missed-
thank you, Tom.
I went off direction.
Okay, I misunderstood. Yeah, okay. I thought I heard that the second day was for only 10 through 12, and that's, the second day is for
No.
everybody.
should that comment there read on the 31st, first student day, K through 12?
Yeah,
That seems to be more clear to me, because
yeah, that makes sense.
that's my only suggestion.
You're giving Mary agita.
Am I?
You give me
I'll just-
headaches with all these different changes.
It'll just save you all those phone calls when the people call and say, what day does my 10th grader go?
Well, the only reason I didn't put it that way is because it's not actually correct to say it's the first day K to 12, because 9 went.
Oh, yeah.
They already did, yeah.
Right.
So that's, I originally had put down first day K to 8 and 10 to
11.
12, but it took up too
Too much
much room.
space. Yeah.
It's the high school's fault.
I'm thinking that if I was a community member or parent, I would look at it and say, okay, my 10th grader goes to school on the 31st, and it seems to me that a lot of the 9th graders are going to know they're going the day before just by the sheer excitement. That's
At least one, if not two letters.
Yeah.
We already talked to the parents actually at the 8th grade open house about the fact that the 9th graders come a day before.
See, technically, the first day of school for the high school is the 30th, but they choose to have only the 9th graders come.
Yeah. Who are we talking to, the state, or are we talking to the parents, so, and the students, so?
Well, what we publish in the calendar is public information, but if the state asked us for a copy of our calendar, that's what we...
Have to send them, okay. Any other comments regarding the calendar? Great, we need to have a motion to accept the calendar as presented.
No.
No?
You have to do it
Next
twice.
month.
We have to have it
Policy.
twice.
It's sort of like a first read.
Oh, okay. All
I wish
right.
we could do it today.
Yeah. All right, then we will bring that forward into our May meeting. A consideration of request from a teacher for unpaid leave during the 2006-07 school year.
This is a request from Erica Kent, who is an English teacher at the high school. What she is writing is that she is writing to request a maternity leave and then special leave for the remainder of the school year 2006-2007. Says, I've given this a great deal of thought and feel it is important for me to be at home the first year of my child's life. Although this will be challenging for my husband and I financially, my priority for next year will be to be at home. I hope you will understand this intention and grant me permission to do so. I plan on returning in the fall of 2007.
Great, thank you. Have a motion?
I move we allow Erica Kent the requested leave and special leave of absence.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there a second? Trish, thank you. Questions? No? All right. All those in favor? 7-0. Thank you. At this point,
I'm sorry, Alan, could I just ask that we get Wendy to put something on the internet about the calendar being voted on in May, just to make sure this tends to be an item of particular interest to most parents, so.
Yeah, I think that's the practice after tonight anyway, that we put on so they can look at it.
Great, thank you. She already has.
Okay. Is there any public comment at this time from our audience? No, they're saving it for another night. Okay. Thank you.
Elaine, I have public comment.
Oh.
As part of the public as well as the school board.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to share an article that the school board gets from Maine School Board's Maine School Boards Association update, and I thought this article was very appropriate to some of the things that are going on right now. So if you give me about 2 minutes, I'll read it. It's entitled Squeaky Wheels. On particularly divisive issues within a school community, some genuine public expression may be silenced by the passions of the moment or a sense of intimidation by the loudest voices. This sense of intimidation is disturbing because it perpetuates a belief that the loudest voice will prevail, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And too often, it seems, the loudest voice clouds any vision of other community voices. I know that my job is to listen and discern, but sometimes it seems too easy to assume that everyone with an interest in the issue was represented on the floor before me. Ironically, a common refrain around me is that the board spends too much time greasing squeaky wheels who show up at the meetings. A frequent occurrence at the school board meetings is that small but vocal groups make a concerted effort to loudly lobby the board, both in and out of the meeting. And citizen school board members obviously are typically not well prepared to deal with high-pressure tactics on an ongoing basis. Moreover, we often forget that a person who calls on the telephone or speaks before the board may be characteristically different from one who does not. An outraged person may be moved to act, while a satisfied person may feel no particular reason to contact the school board. As school board members, we have to resist the belief that the public voice is the voice shouting at us. Listening only to the squeaky wheels leads us to overlook those wheels that are functioning and, perhaps worse, ignore wheels that may have broken or fallen off. Allowing ourselves to be mere whetstones for someone else's axe will dull our own blade, preventing us from cutting through the thickest of disagreement and misinformation to clear paths for the district. As board members, we are charged with maintaining a vision that extends beyond the moment and beyond the involvement of those in the room at the moment. Our vision must extend into the future, and we must constantly refocus and protect it. We must find the facts that are often silent beneath the troubled surface. We must enhance our ability to identify useful data and use it in meaningful ways without losing sight of the highly polarized, particularized needs across our district, a continuous challenge. You as a school board member may be the closest approximation to the public voice. After listening, you must articulate a vision that will carry the district into the future, even though some people in the room may not like it. You are neither a grease bucket nor grinding stone. We must see that voices so often grinding us down merely serve to sharpen us. We listen, we discern, we balance viewpoints, spoken and unspoken. We decide, and we will be responsible. This is from the Illinois School Board Journal, May and April of 2006. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'd like to ask a question since Kathy read that article. Kathy, then by reading that article, are you sharing with the board that that's how you feel that this board is currently carrying itself?
No, I just found that it was an interesting article, and it talked about some of the issues that I see going on, and so I just wanted to share it with the board. And
But I just want to be clear. Is this something that you see going on with the board?
No.
Okay.
All right. School board agenda requests. At this time, do we have any items that school board members would like to be addressed at future agendas?
I have a question, I think, more than anything else, and that's about, we're doing on April 25th, the bullying workshop. Remembering the next night, we also have the town council workshop. I've heard from Stan Davis, who is a statewide, New England-wide expert on bullying as well, and he has some dates available in May when he would be willing to come and also speak to us if we're at all interested. So what I need to find out is, I know in May we've talked about the possibility of doing for that workshop near the end of the month. I just wrote it down now. I've forgotten what I wrote down. I've forgotten what it was. But anyway, my question is whether you want me to pursue having Stan also come in May or to hold off for another time. I do want to do the bullying workshop itself on April 25th because I've got people in the system committed to it at that point in time.
So, you mean coming in addition, so we
Yes.
would do the bullying workshop in April, and then have our future directions workshop in May, and then
That's
we
right.
would,
I'm sorry, that is what I was looking
and then we would have him come
at another time.
at another time.
You know, I think I get something beyond May, but May happened to be, I was shocked when I heard from him. They did have some dates available in May. So I thought I'd at least put that on the table for you to decide whether you want to do it that quickly or whether you want to look at something in the fall with him or how you want to deal with that.
So it would be two separate meetings then, one that's internal discussion, and
One
then
will
he
be
would...
the internal discussion, the other one will be more the external discussion about what is offered, what is common language, what is common planning, those types of things.
I would just be concerned about finding a date in May for an additional workshop. So he can't, he cannot make the May workshop?
No, he can't.
He
Not
cannot.
the April workshop. He can't make the
Or the April or the May?
He could make the May workshop, but at this point in time, I don't feel it's wise to have both reports from my staffs and then him as well. We're going to have to pay him, and so I want to use him as a separate entity to report to us when we do it, if we want to use him.
Is Stan best used to do a workshop with the school board, or is he best utilized as a community?
I think it would be wise to do it as a community thing, opening it to the community for...
Better investment of my money.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, you know, if we had some time to work with the parents' associations, I think we would get good turnout, and we might be able to get some help as far as funding a visitor such as Stan, just talk about this issue.
We could also see what comes out of the April workshop
Yeah.
and where that takes us in terms of bullying, so that we could work with him a little bit to plan for whatever, program we might think we'd like him to do in the fall.
Okay, that's what I'm...
Yeah, I mean, now that I don't think I was aware that he was going to cost money, and so I would say, let's take our time. Let's really make sure that we're collaborating with other organizations so we get the biggest return on whatever we pay.
That's okay with the board, I just wanted to
Well,
let you know.
just for your consideration, at this point, we're also working on a September event with Bob Bigelow.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
A September event as, in terms of a school board workshop?
No, in terms of a public...
Community.
Oh, just a community.
Community event with Bob Bigelow.
Sports.
He hasn't been here in quite a while, and it reinforces sports done right.
Okay. Well, those are considerations, but it is a time of the year we tend to get a better than average turnout, so, and what...
It may actually even be better to have like in October when we're not competing with so many other things in September.
Yeah.
Or stands work. Anyways, I think it's worth talking about.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so I'm safe for waiting till fall then?
Yeah. Okay. Announcements of upcoming meetings. Policy Committee is scheduled to meet Tuesday, April 11th at 12 noon. Future Direction Plan Committee will be meeting Monday, April 24th at 10 a.m. The Finance Committee will meet Tuesday, April 25th at 12:30 p.m. The School Board workshop on bullying that we just got finished talking about will be scheduled for Tuesday, April 25th, 7 p.m., and that is in the high school library. Our next school board business meeting will be Tuesday, May 9th at 7 p.m. here in Town Council Chambers. This Thursday, we will have a presentation of the proposed 2006-2007 school budget to the Town Council Finance Committee. Again, as Rebecca mentioned, that will be held at the high school cafeteria, and that, I believe, starts at 7 o'clock. 7:30. I'm sorry, I knew there was a reason why I wanted to say the time, because it was different than what we do. The Personnel Committee, it is Monday, April 22nd, Kathy?
No, Monday, May 22nd.
May 22nd.
At 1 p.m. in Jordan Conference Room.
In the Jordan Conference Room. Okay, thank you. And we also have a public hearing on the proposed budget. We don't have it, actually, the Town Council does, and that will most likely be scheduled or approved on Thursday night, but is scheduled for Wednesday, April 26th. It's currently at 7:30 p.m. in the council chambers. I just want to also ask, do we have those meeting dates for the Climate Committee and the Wellness Committee? You said they were meetings this week?
Wellness Committee is this Thursday, 12:30 to 2, in the, actually, it's in the library, the middle school library conference room, not the middle school, regular conference room. So that's the library conference room. Yeah, 12:30 to 2.
Thank you. And the Climate Committee was, very good. Item number 16 was, I would like to have a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing the evaluation and duties of the superintendent as per MRSA 405 subsection 6.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Ann, any discussion?
I've expressed to the board my reasons for not wanting to proceed with this executive session tonight.